In this mini lecture, we're going to be looking at human resource management. Human resources focuses on maximizing the efficiency of workforce in order to increase business success. This is done by recruiting talent, promoting career development or training, and determining workforce needs. Human resource planning includes evaluating the company's current workforce through job evaluation, which looks at which tasks are assigned to each position, creating job descriptions, which provides an explanation of the responsibilities of each position, and then coming up with job requirements or the qualifications that are required to hold a position. Human resource planning also includes forecasting future human resource needs and coming up with a plan on how we will fulfill those needs. In human resource management planning, first we look at recruitment. So how are we going to recruit people? How are we going to select them? What type of training will we provide? How will we evaluate them? What type of compensation and benefits will we provide? And what does it look like when somebody leaves our company? So let's first look at recruitment. So there's two ways we can recruit. One is internally, which means that we seek employees who currently work for us, or some might call it hiring from within or promoting internally. This can be a real motivator for current employees because it allows them to move up in the organization. But it also can be a hindrance for companies because we're not able to find new external talent. In external recruiting, which is probably what we think of most, we look for new business or new employees that currently don't work for us. And this is kind of our traditional hiring that we think about. The benefit of external recruiting is that you do get more diversity in candidates and a larger pool usually. This is the selection process. It usually includes reviewing applications, whatever that might look for, like if you have a paper application or you have people submit a resume, and then conducting interviews. And then sometimes companies will have individuals take tests. It could be a cognitive test, it could be a personality test. I've had to do actually a handwriting test. It can be a computer test, whatever it might look like that they're trying to find out. Next, references are checked, and sometimes background checks are done. Some companies even do credit checks these days. Next, a job offer is put together, and if the person accepts the offer, then you have a new employee. It's also the job of HR to conduct training and development. So when we first hire an employee, usually providing orientation, it's usually some sort of a class or workshop to introduce employees to the business. A lot of times on-the-job training is also used where employees learn as they go. They might have a mentor or they might shadow so that they can get a good understanding of the company. There can also be apprenticeships where a new employee serves as an assistant to a fully trained worker before they gain their full credentials. We see this in some technical careers like I think in some of the trades like I'm trying to think like if you're I'm thinking wiring, but I know there's another name for it. But if you're an electrician, that's a really common thing. I just having a moment. I couldn't think of the word. All right. There's also off-the-job training that can occur in classrooms or at workshops, or that can be computer-based. A lot of times these are used for continued professional development. There's management development programs. For example, um, Sherwin-Williams is a paint store. They actually have a pretty extensive management training program where they hire people and they train them with the idea that they will eventually manage their own store. HR must also look at evaluation. So how do we evaluate our employees? So helping with performance appraisals, coming up with what that process looks like, what questions or what individuals are appraised on, and helping to provide fair feedback and appropriate feedback. And even sometimes during that evaluation process, there's changes to wages and salaries as well that occur. HR must also look at compensation. So when we're looking at what we should compensate an employee, there's some different factors we need to look at. So one is, what is our competition pay? What are we able to pay? What is the cost of living where we are? Do we traditionally pay a wage, like an hourly wage or a salary? Are we going to pay for performance, such as commission or bonuses? And so those are all considerations that you need to think about when you're putting together a compensation package. But compensation also includes benefits, and these are non-cash items such as health insurance, vacation, childcare, um, cafeteria style benefits where you're given a set dollar amount that you can spend on specific things. Flex time, there's more. Different work weeks, so allowing employees to work 4 10-hour days instead of 5 8-hour days, letting people work remotely, job sharing. So there's all kinds of benefits we can provide to our employees on time that are in addition to the wages that we pay them. HR also needs to look at separation, and so businesses need to proceed cautiously if they are terminating an employee to avoid a wrongful termination lawsuit. So you need to know those laws, which we'll talk about next. There's different reasons people leave. One is they just have a different opportunity and they're ready to move on. Maybe they were fired or they were let go because they're a poor performing employee. You also need to know your state laws in regards to that. Maybe we were struggling financially, so we had to do some layoffs. Or maybe somebody just left for personal reasons, or they retired. So there's all kinds of reasons people leave. But we do need to understand the laws that govern federal employment or that govern employment. So in the United States, there's some federal employment laws that we need to know about. So I'm just going to cover the ones that I think are the most important. So the Equal Pay Act basically says that men and women in the same or similar jobs should be given equal pay for equal work. Um, if there's an inequality in wages between men and women, employers can't reduce the wages of either gender. They have to just, let's say that a woman was paid more than a man and they had the same job, they would have to pay that man the same as the woman and vice versa. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act says that employees and job applicants can't be discriminated against based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. This is a big one. The Age Discrimination Act protects employees who are 40 years of age and older from discrimination on the basis of age in hiring, promoting, discharge, or compensation. So you have to be very careful for letting somebody go who's over the age of 40 to make sure that it's not age discrimination, or that to make sure that we aren't discriminating against people who are over 40. Basically, we can't discriminate on age. The only time age can really be considered is when we have, um, for example, there might be a law that says you need to be 18 to work at a casino or 21 to work in an establishment that serves alcohol. And a lot of times those are state laws that you need to know about. The Pregnancy Discrimination Act says that you cannot discriminate against a woman or an applicant or employee unfavorably because of pregnancy, childbirth, or a medical condition related to pregnancy or childbirth, or even because they may become pregnant. So make sure we understand that one. The Family Medical Leave Act is a big one that everybody should know about. It entitles eligible employees of covered employers to take unpaid job protected leave for family and medical reasons, with the continuation of health insurance coverage under the same terms and conditions as if they had not taken the leave. So individuals can, according to the law, can take 12 weeks of leave in a 1-year period for the birth of a child, or to care for a child that was adopted, the placement or foster care as well, to care for employee's spouse, child, or parent who has a serious health condition, a serious health condition that makes the employee unable to perform their jobs, or any qualifying exigency that arises out of the fact that the employee's spouse, daughter, or parent is a covered family member on covered active duty. So it covers individuals who serve in the military as well. Now, the key with the Family Medical Leave Act is that it's unpaid. So companies don't have to pay the individuals while they are on leave. Many do, at least for part of it, but it's really just allowing them to take the time and ensuring that they'll have their job when they come back. Another caveat of this is that you can take 26 work weeks of leave during a 1 year period to care for a covered service member with a serious injury or illness if the employee is the service member's spouse, son, daughter, parent, or next of kin, and that's the military caregiver leave. The Americans with Disabilities Act prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities. So this basically says that we can't discriminate against somebody just because they have a disability, and that if somebody does have a disability, we need to make reasonable accommodations. So for example, if somebody has, let's say, is on the autism spectrum, they don't have to disclose that to an employer, and the employer can't the employer can't not hire them because of that. Let's say that somebody is on the autism spectrum, and actually, let's not use that example. Let's say that somebody has a cognitive disability and is unable to read, and the job requires that a person be able to read. Then the employer can say, well, I can't consider you because you need to read and you are not able to read. And let's say that somebody needs an accommodation. For example, maybe they have a vision issue and they need natural light. The company would need to ensure that that person has some natural light in their work area. That would be a reasonable accommodation, but they wouldn't have to make sure there's natural light in all parts of the building. So it's really looking at not discriminating because of disabilities and providing reasonable accommodations when necessary. The Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act basically protects service members and veterans' employment rights when they come back from serving. So it requires employers to put individuals back to work in their civilian jobs after military service. Another concept that is important to understand is affirmative action. Affirmative action is policies that are meant to increase employment and educational opportunities for underrepresented groups. And so it's really seeking to eliminate discrimination that has happened in the past with the idea of having a more diverse workforce. And you'll see a lot of companies have a lot of diversity initiatives and are really trying to have a more representative workforce that really mirrors what the population in that region looks like. And then lastly, sexual harassment is workplace discrimination against a person based on his or her gender. It can come from requesting sexual favors in order to keep your job to something like having a dirty joke up that makes somebody uncomfortable. And harassment in general is something that we need to be careful of in the workplace, and bullying, and making sure that we have a workplace that is not hostile. So firms need to ensure that everyone in the organization understands this. They should not tolerate any sexual harassment and have a system in place for complaints. And there shouldn't be no retaliation. And this holds true for just for all forms of harassment. All right, that's HR in a nutshell. If you have any questions, let me know.